Hello, world. This is John Fizzackerly with Bodhi Song, and it's about 10 days later since the recording of my second episode of the Vulnerability Project in Trieste, Italy, and the cruise that I was on celebrating my friend's birthday went so well. It was it's such a beautiful experience of practicing living every day in the moment. And some beautiful connections were made. It's amazing how the universe places people in your path. Everything from the doctor that gave acupuncture. For me, I tried acupuncture for the first time, and I was told her about Bodhi Song and my new sound healing career, and she listened to a couple of the relaxation tracks that I have up on YouTube, and they really helped her sleep, and so she was gonna, mention that to her patients. I met a lovely gentleman that is just starting his own journey recovering from his own religious trauma and stepping out boldly into his own new life. And now I am in Barcelona, Spain, and I have a beautiful little view out my window of the street, the busy street, and the people going by. And I'm just so full of gratitude about all of it, about just being able to have experienced all of this. And at the beginning of our little journey in Trieste, I was so encouraged and I was so touched to see that so many people had resonated with what I had shared. And 10 days later, 50,000 more of you hit the subscribe button, which is so sweet. And it is so encouraging. It makes me want to continue to share my story, and I'm going to. And today is a little bit different. I've been thinking about, where I wanted to go in the next part of my story. We're still in. I shared this the last post about just starting in Hawaii, and I had just started to talk about a man named Charles, who was a homeless individual that I ended up taking home. And the universe, it's amazing. It is so amazing to me how we'll have these experiences when you're open to just saying, okay, universe, what's the what's the plan for the day? What are we going to learn today in Earth School? And just being open. It's amazing, these experiences that I've had. I won't realize, how important a certain experience will be, or how it will tie into something, and until later down the road. And I wanted to start this with actually rewinding back a couple months. I'm going to play a video for you guys that I shared on my own Instagram. An experience that I had during a layover in Chicago, Illinois, a couple months ago. And I'm going to share that first. And then I'm going to tell you about my experience with Charles and the headspace that I was in at that time in my life. Um, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna hit stop recording so I have a little video here, and then I will pick back up on the other side. Okay. Hey folks, I'm sitting in my hotel room in downtown Chicago, a place that I was not expecting to be today. I had a delayed flight that missed a connection, and so the airline put me up in a hotel. And normally the hotel is by the airport, and for some reason, the airline lady said, "Oh my goodness, there's actually a hotel, right in downtown Chicago. It's, a very nice area. Would you like that?" And I thought, well, sure. If I'm going to be here all day, I might as well. And it is. It's this beautiful hotel, Renaissance hotel in downtown Chicago. And I have a beautiful view of the river, and just, feeling so lucky that I have this just random little 24-hour stint in Chicago, and as I was walking to the hotel after I got off the train, I passed by this young boy that could not have been more than 19, 20 years old. And he had, long, scraggly blonde hair and a blue kind of, dirty fucking sweatshirt. And he wasn't asking for anything. He was just sitting there, just looking down. And he looked so sad. And I don't know what it was about him, but as I was literally making a little video talking about how happy I am I'm in Chicago, and I passed by this boy, and I immediately looked back, and I thought, someone needs to tell him he's loved. And I thought, well, I'm busy to get to my hotel, and I thought I'll come back. I thought I was going to give him like $1 or something like that. And I thought, if he's still back in that spot, when I'm walking around, then that's my sign, right? Made a little excuse for myself instead of just stopping and doing something that my heart and intuition, told me to do. And so I got to the hotel, and I took some time for myself and just kind of, meditated a little bit, and put my bag down, and I went to go grab some lunch and go to, Target and buy some like underwear and t-shirts and whatnot, because my bag is somewhere on a plane somewhere, making its way to my final destination I'm going to. And I started thinking about that young man again. And the more that I thought about him, the more I just thought, man, I really hope I run into him, because my heart just kind of broke for this guy. He just looked so sad. And so anyways, I popped into a restaurant, and there was an ATM in the restaurant, and I thought, oh, perfect. I'll pull out a little cash and, whatever. And I'm not saying this will make this abundantly clear. I'm not saying this to be like, oh, look at me. Oh, I'm taking your help. I fucking hate that. That makes me so mad when people do that. Post all this. Look at me giving stuff to the homeless. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Who are you doing it for? Yourself or actual hurting people? Anyways, sorry, I'll get on my soapbox about that. But anyways, I walked back to the spot where this man was, where I was trying to find it. And the more that I looked, the more I didn't see him, and the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to get, just find this person. But I started, looking. And you don't have to go very far in any city or town to find people that are in desperate situations. And we all do the same thing. We all walk by them and we pretend like we don't see them, and because it's, an inconvenience in our day. But I had this money that I had pulled out that I thought, I'm going to, maybe give this kid this money to see what, And anyways, there were a few people that my heart, intuition said, just stop and just tell them that they are loved. And so I did. Let me tell you, there are so many people in this world that are in pain, and they just simply need love. Not somebody to be nice and kind and love them into some fucking religion, but just love them. Just simply love them and nothing else. There was a lady that was probably in her 60s, and you could tell that she'd been on the streets for however many, a long time. A long time. And I walked up to her and I said, "Ma'am, here, this is for you." And she said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "No one ever looks at me." So I got down on my knee and I put my hand in her face like this. And I said, "You are so loved. You are so loved." You can see tears well up in her eyes. She said, "Thank you. That's so nice to hear. No one's told me that in a very long time, And it was just a simple act. Just telling someone that they are loved. Oh, the universe is wild. I know now why I got put down here in this apartment, or this hotel down here in Chicago. Let me tell you what. Bodhi song, the business that I start with this sound healing, will only be loving people. There will be no religion or dogma or anything like that. No, it will be loving people simply just where they are at, period. And only that. Pure, unconditional love, period. Unconditional. Not, we'll love you until we get you in this church and then tell you what a vile sinner you are, and then maybe you can stay. Absolutely not. Anyways, I got back to my hotel room because these lines of poetry kind of came to me, and I just wanted to share this poem. And I'm going to end with this poem. And I don't want a single fucking person that looks at this video to sit there and comment, "Oh, John, you have such a good heart. Oh, that's so great. Good for you." Oh, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that at all. I want you to go out and love people. That's what I want. This poem is not to make anybody feel bad or feel guilty or feel good because you heard a feel good poem. Oh, no. Go out and do something. Love people. Love people right where they're at. It is so simple.
This life is so simple. All we need to do is love people right where they are at, period. It is that simple. And when you love people, it softens the heart and it allows people to start their own healing. So anyways, just want to make that clear. This is not a post about, look at, I can't stand that. Nothing makes me more just disgusted when I see these videos of people videoing themselves giving $20 to a homeless person, and this homeless person it's oh my god, that's so disgusting. And then they post it like, look at me, look at this big great thing that I did. Oh, fuck that makes me so mad. So that is not what this post is. What this post is a little bit of a lesson that the universe showed me, something that I've always seen, but we never want to look at it because it's a problem, because it makes us feel uncomfortable. Next time you see a homeless person, don't make excuses about, they're on drugs, and they have a choice, and they can go to a homeless shelter, and blah, blah, blah. If their life is so bad that they're sitting on the street alone, cracked out on drugs because they're in so much pain, what an awful place to be. What a terrible place to be. Maybe the next time you see them, you think of this moment when you're watching this video, and you remember the words of this poem, the title of this poem. All right, I shall get off my soapbox and read this poem. This poem is dedicated to all those souls down there, downtown Chicago, that are sitting on dirty blankets with cups and in dire, desperate, awful straits and in so much pain, just needing a little love. This poem is called Who Will Stop to Love? A teenage boy whose dad he never knew, a mom that beat him black and blue, grew up in filth and dirt and grime, never a dollar, just nickels and dimes. Stuck in a loop of poverty and shame, no one ever asks his name. Who will stop to love? A woman of years, skin weathered and gray, wishing that someone would look her way. 3 children she had, now dead and gone, cut down in their prime, drug deals gone wrong. With nowhere to go, the streets are her home, feeling invisible, betrayed, sad, and alone. Who will stop to love? An old man in tatters, nails yellowed and long, looking downtrodden, softly humming a song. A trash bag of rags, all he has to his name, a dirty old blanket, joints aching in pain. Lost in the memories of heartache and strife, he contemplates daily of taking his life. Who will stop to love? If only for a moment someone cared just enough to just take a minute and give them a hug. Compassion and love and empathy and grace doesn't cost you a penny and could brighten their day A small act of kindness can soften a heart. And that, my friends, is where healing can start. So will you stop to love?
Okay, so first of all, I'm so glad I got to share that poem with you. That was something that just came flying in my head that day in Chicago. And I know I sound pretty raw emotionally there. It was a very raw emotional day. But a lesson that the universe gave me, a lesson that I learned. And it will, something I will never forget, and it will have impact on me for the rest of my life. I'm so glad I learned that lesson, though. Yesterday, we were walking around downtown Barcelona, and of course, like in any city, there are always people in desperate need. And there were a few people that I passed by. And that little intuition, that little voice, said the same thing. And so, I listened to that voice. And I walked up to those two individuals and I, gave them a little love. Anyways, let's rewind now back to July of 2005, 21 years ago. And let me tell you a story about a man named Charles. A story that I kept buried, that I didn't tell even my closest friends. And I don't know why I didn't, especially, I don't know, maybe after this, since this whole beautiful spiritual awakening in my own life, I don't know why I was embarrassed to share this story. But I'm going to share it now. I think part of it was, I don't know, maybe shame, maybe, I don't know. But anyways, I had, like I said in the previous episode, dropped my ex-wife off at the airport. Was the last time when I saw her. And it was about 3 days later at that point. And I was so, I had no idea what to do. And 21 years ago there was no the dating apps, or well, there wasn't apps, there wasn't smartphones or anything like this. I think there was like gay.com. I don't think that's about all I can remember. You actually had to go to establishments to meet people, or at least that's. And so I thought, okay, I gotta do something. I can't just sit here. And so I remember getting in the shower and looking at I had my wedding ring on still, and getting in the shower and looking at that and just thinking, feeling so lost and alone, and with there was just nobody that I knew to really turn to, and crying, and and then I remember getting ready. I was like, I'm gonna go to the only gay bar in Hawaii that I know. It's called Hula's in downtown Honolulu. It's still there. I think it's been around for like 50 years now. And I put on the I had no idea what to wear. I just put on the tightest shirt that I had, and I thought, well, I guess that's the gayest looking thing I own. I don't know. It was this kind of blue shiny shirt, and I got in my car and I drove down to uh, Waikiki, where Hula's is, right across from the zoo, right down on the water. And I remember listening to Moulin Rouge, the soundtrack of Moulin Rouge, in the car all the way down. Because why not? And I parked the car, and I get out, and I walk up into Hula's, and I am just petrified. I had never been in a gay establishment in my entire life. I had just, and mind you, at this point, I still have all of this programming in my head about what gay people are, and these vile pits of sin, which would be a gay bar, just like, oh my gosh. So anyways, I walk into this gay bar, and I pay my cover, and it was like, it must have been fairly early in the evening. I think it was probably like around 9 o'clock in the evening. There was nobody there. But I walk in, and I felt like the few people that were there were all, I walked in to the little bar and just stood there like this and froze. And I just felt like everybody's eyes just turned and looked at me. I don't think they actually did, but that's how it felt. And I stood there for probably about 10 seconds. It felt like an eternity. And I just panicked. And I went right back out the door. And so I'm like, I freaked out. And I ran downstairs, and I went into the Starbucks, and I got a caramel macchiato. I don't know why I did. And then I went to the ABC store, and I bought a pack of Camel Turkish Gold cigarettes. Why? I don't know. At the time, the Navy, everybody used to go on smoke breaks or whatever, and I thought, well, I'm being a big old rebel now, so I might as well buy some cigarettes. I don't know. It was so silly. Oh, but I did. And I decided I was going to walk along the beach in Waikiki. And I had my little flip phone, because mind you, there's just no smartphones at this point, so I had my little flip phone. And I must have been texting somebody or something, but I had my phone out, and I had my little coffee out. And I'm walking down the, path along Waikiki, the beach there. It was a beautiful evening, and all of a sudden, he was handsome, young, handsome, but he was homeless. I don't even know if I realized he was homeless at the time, but he walked up to me, and he said, he offered me 75 cents. He had a few quarters in his hand. And he said, excuse me, I can't find my friend. Could I please use your phone? I'll gladly pay you. And I was, I said, oh, you don't need to pay me 75 cents. Sure, you can use my, phone to text his friend or whatever. And so anyways, that started this conversation that I had with this guy, and come to find out his name was Charles. And at this point in my life, like I said in the previous episode, I was so sheltered. I didn't know the drug scene. I didn't know, meth, which is huge in Hawaii. It's a huge problem in Hawaii, the crystal meth situation, and he was on it. And somehow, through our conversations, we ended up sitting on the beach together. And mind you, this is 21 years ago, so I'm you know, I don't remember exactly everything we talked about, but we talked for quite some time on the beach. And he was the first, I could tell, just from how he talked and how he interacted, I could tell he was most likely, gay, and he was. So I had this cute young person that was paying attention to me, and I just thought, well, maybe this is how works. Maybe this is the person that I'm supposed to meet and be with, and this. Again, I was such a. I mean, and I still am. I will always be a hopeless romantic, But in chance encounters and all of that sort of thing, I just think it's so beautiful. Like I said, I met my ex-wife in the Atlanta, Georgia airport. We both had a delay, So I'm very, very much into you meet people. People come into your life, and it's been at least in my life. Some of these chance encounters, these people that you meet that just kind of fly into your world out of the blue. They're usually the most impactful relationships, and I really think now it's like universe again just puts people in our path. But anyways, he was high, and I didn't know what any of that was at the time. I didn't, and somehow he, through trying to find his friend, I believe, we talked for a while, and we walked into downtown Waikiki, and somehow, I don't know how, but he somehow convinced me to give him, I think, or pull out $20 or something like that, so he could get just a little bit more meth. And he had this little pipe thing, but he was also he also told me in our conversations how he was trying to get himself clean, get himself put back together. I don't even know. I mean, I know he was gay, but he was living with some woman or something prior to that, and the woman was even worse off situation as far as her own addiction. And I guess it had gotten so bad that he had that was on another island, and he had left the island and gone to Honolulu to kind of get away from that. And anyways, he through this through the course of the evening, this is like from 9 o'clock until I think somehow it was like even being into the middle of the night, we had sit and talked, and somehow he had convinced me to give him some money, and he went in and bought it was like $20, which is not very much for drugs. And he was able to score just this very little amount or something. And he was like, this is the last time I'm going to do this, or something like that. And I remember us going back to my car. And it's my little Toyota Echo. And we got in my car and we drove off somewhere up into the hill somewhere. And he gave me a little. That was my first experience with that drug. And I tried it. And it was, like I said, it wasn't a very big amount. And so, luckily. And so it didn't have too much of an effect on me. I mean, I was obviously wired because it's a stimulant. And, there wasn't much, we were, kissing, and I just thought, oh, maybe this is it, and this, again, I know this sounds crazy, I know it sounds wild, but I look back at that moment, and I was so desperate to receive any kind of attention, love, affection, from anybody at that point. And we it ended up being the night went on. I still hadn't gone home yet. We were, talking, and like I said, we drove up into the hills and we had a little makeout session, and that was about it. But he was out of his stuff, and I said, it was the next day, and I was like, well, I need to get home, and I said, if you want to come with me, and mind you, I am in Navy military housing. I had just dropped Ashley off at my ex-wife at the airport a few days prior. And I was in the military, and I remember thinking, even in this state of somewhat mild intoxication or whatever, I was like, I cannot do this. I remember telling him that. And I was like, if you come with me, you cannot you cannot have this in my place. Like, that cannot happen. And like I said, through our conversations, he had been talking about how he wanted to improve his life, and get off of the drugs, and try to be better. I don't know. I haven't thought about this story for so long. And I have so much more compassion and empathy for this guy now. But anyways, brought him home. And I and to show me that he was serious about doing his thing, he took his little pipe and he took his shoe and he stomped on it and he crushed the whole thing. And all this man had was just this little duffel bag, and there was nothing in the duffel bag. He didn't have any drugs. He didn't have any drug paraphernalia to do drugs, and he was like, I'm gonna, try to improve himself. And I bring him home, and again, it was like this guy. I'm just trying to think about what this guy must have thought, bringing him into this military housing. With our wedding pictures are still on the wall. It's just very apparent that a young married couple lives there, and I just thought, well, this is my new boyfriend. I guess that's how this works. I just came out, and this is the first boy that paid attention to me, so guess I have a boyfriend now. Okay, we're gonna live happily ever after. And the next day, so I think this must have happened over a weekend or something, but I remember the next day, I had to go to work, and Charles was there still, and he had told me in our conversations that he had a social worker. He had a small few things at a homeless shelter in downtown Honolulu, and he must have had some mental health struggles, because he was not allowed to be in charge of any of his own money, and somehow he convinced me to go with him to the Social Security office and become his, I don't even know what you call it, but it was like he had his disability or whatever. It wasn't more than a couple $100. He couldn't go into his account, had to go to somebody else, and then that person would then, it was like a sponsor type thing, and he had convinced me to do that for him. And so we went to the Social Security office, and I remember thinking, because at this point, everything that all the drugs and the Social Security and the whatever, and it was like I couldn't say no because I was so afraid, and I now I can look back at that and go, oh my God, John, you thought I had no self-worth at all. I had zero self-esteem. I had no self-confidence whatsoever. And I was just grasping at the first thing that came along, and also feeling, you know, emotionally invested and wanting to help this guy, and so I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing by helping him and whatever. But anyways, this guy lived with me for, I think, just a little over a week, but I remember very quickly, within like a couple days time, realizing hitting me just how in over my head I had got myself. I am 22 years old at that point. Just come out, and is still very much in the throes of this religious mindset, right? So anything that bad would happen, like, oh, maybe this is my punishment, maybe I should know, oh my gosh, what a time that was. But anyways, I remember driving to work one of those mornings. I think it was maybe just a couple days in, and thinking, praying, I was like, I don't know what to, oh my God, I have a home. It just started to dawn on me, like, I have a homeless individual that is in my house that I actually really don't have feelings for, or this is not a good situation. I'm in military housing. What am I gonna do? And I remember coming home from work, and you were not supposed to smoke inside at all. And he had like smoked a cigarette in the house, and I panicked. I just thought, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And I remember coming home from work, and in a moment of, panic, and I do, I look back at this, it's the way that it all happened. I was such a scared kid, but in this moment of panic, I lied, and I remember telling him, I think he had been there for about a week, and obviously not doing any of the drugs, because he had probably gained about 10 pounds just in that short amount of time, just from eating and being able to sleep and take a shower. The first thing he did when we got home is he was able to take a shower. So these little things that we take for granted every day. But I just remember like thinking, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I remember but he had started to, you could tell he was starting to feel like safe, like maybe he had found a place that, he could start to, heal. But that was not the place. A 22-year-old, very deeply closeted religious kid was not the place to recover from a meth addiction, And anyways, I remember coming home from work, and I in this moment of panic, I lied to him, and I said, my wife is coming home, and we've decided to reconcile, and you're gonna have to, you can't stay here, But how can I, what can I do? How can I, I want to, and I remember as soon as I told him that, I remember his demeanor completely changed, and it went from someone who felt safe to back to the person that I had met a few days prior, which was someone that was just in straight survival mode. And it was almost like this little moment of panic, and it was like the walls kind of went right back up. And I said, okay, hold up, don't panic. You've done so good. You're 7 days, in sober. And I was like, how, what can I do? How can I help? What can I do? Surely we can figure something out. Surely we can do something. And this was wild. This was a wild little synchronicity. And maybe this is why this man came across my path to begin with. But he said, well, I do have a sister that lives in Eva Beach. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, how about I take you to your sister? I said, where does your sister live? And he said, oh, the Kaimali Apartments in Eva Beach. And I thought, well, I said, I know exactly where that is at. I was like, that's where my ex-wife and I lived when we first moved to Hawaii. When Ashley and I first got to Hawaii, the wait list for the military housing was, 6-7 months, and we wanted to get into the nice places in Pearl Harbor. And so we thought, well, we'll get on the wait list, we'll wait, and we'll just temporarily live in this apartment complex in Eva Beach. And it just so happens that man's sister lived in the exact same apartment complex. And, mind you, this is like, I am so directionally challenged as it is, and so I am just getting around. I'm not great with directions, but I knew exactly where that place was. And, there was no, we didn't have the cell phones, you just pop it in and just go, So it was just a very serendipitous, moment that I knew exactly where to take this guy. And I said, well, let me take you there. So I took him there, and I remember waiting outside the apartments, and he went in to speak with his sister. And he said, I won't think I'll be able to stay with my sister, but maybe if I could get in contact with my dad. And this man had grown up in Missouri. And I remember waiting outside, and he was in there for a little while, and he came out, and he said, my sister was able to call my dad, because I guess the dad they were not speaking, and addiction is a awful thing. It's an awful thing. It destroys so many lives, or it has but apparently, the dad, because he was 7 days sober at that point, he was saying, I'm trying to get my life together, I'm not sure where I'm gonna go, and the dad said, I will give you one more chance. If you can get out to Missouri, or he's in Hawaii, if you can get out to Missouri, you can stay with me. But you have to find your way back out here. And so at that point, and again, in this moment of panic, I thought, well, there we go. Oh my gosh, I'll get you to Missouri. This little baby, I didn't make hardly any money at all, but I grabbed my credit card, and we got home, and I bought him a plane ticket for one-way ticket from Honolulu to LA, and then I bought him a bus ticket from LA to Missouri. And that night, the night before he left, I took all of it. By that time we had gone to the homeless shelter and picked up the few little possessions that he had. And I washed the duffel bag. That duffel bag was so full of sand and dirt, and it hadn't been cleaned in who God knows how long, and the few clothes, I washed them, and I went into my closet and I pulled out some clothes and packed a bag for this guy. And the next day I took him to the Honolulu airport, and I thought, well, I'm getting good at this now. Because again, I just dropped Ashley off at the Honolulu airport. And the last time that I ever saw him was at the Honolulu airport, and he was wearing one of the shirts that I had given him. And he hugged me and he said, I love you. And I was in such a panic at that point. I just wanted to, because I didn't, oh my gosh. I gave him a hug really quickly, and I was like, love you too, man, best of luck, and right before that I had went to the ATM and The first deposit from that Social Security thing had already gone into my account. So I pulled that money out and had given it to him because it was his Social Security money. And so he had some cash. He had a little bit of cash. He had a duffel bag full of clean clothes, and that was the last that I ever saw of that man. And the only reason I know that he did make it to Missouri is so immediately right after I dropped him off at the airport, I hightailed it down to the Social Security office, and I said, this gentleman no longer lives with me, and I need to be taken off of whatever this is. Please remove me. Blah blah blah. And so did that, and then a few weeks later, I got a letter from the Social Security Administration in Missouri, saying that I had been removed officially, and that I believe it was his aunt had taken over the person taking the payments. And so I know that he made it over there. I don't know why that was a story that I was so embarrassed to tell for so many years. Maybe because of the drugs situation, I don't know. I'm going to be talking a lot more about that when the universe guides me to the Gay Men's Health, whatever episode. I don't know, I'm going to be going there. But that was my first, I would say, my first experience with that drug was all the way back in 2005. I didn't have any more experience with that again for another 10 years or whatnot. But at that time, again, I was in such a state, such a, just grasping for anything that would, or anyone that would give me that affection and love that I needed. And this is one of the reasons why I am doing the sound healing thing full time with Bodhi song. Bodhi song and me and my life and my path and my journey. I will be that for somebody who is in a similar situation, for that 20-year-old kid that grew up in church and thinks that he's all alone. That's the thing. This is what being raised in that kind of a religious community does. Is I felt I just thought at that, and it sounds silly now. We're in 2026, It just sounds absurd, but at that point in time, I just thought I was the only one. I was the only gay Christian kid. Because that's how that environment kind of makes you feel. That you're, there's something wrong with you. And therefore, this is something that it's all you, and you're the only, nobody else is like this. We're all straight and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, man, I was so, for better terms, pardon my French, I was really fucked up emotionally for a lot of years. And those first couple of years in Hawaii were some of the, hardest. When you embark upon a journey that is completely in the unknown from a world that you have been in. It's very scary. It's a very scary thing to do. I can totally understand and relate to men that are still closeted, that are still in that church world, that are still in that mindset, I can relate and have empathy and grace and compassion because I know how that feels. I know how that felt. And like, things are different, a little bit different now. Society has changed quite a bit, you know, from what it was 21 years ago. But the point that I wanted to make in this episode, offering, whatever you call it, is you never know what another individual is going through. I went to work, my little Navy job. Oh, happy-go-lucky Faz, not knowing that I was, harboring this poor man in the throes of his own addiction, in this deep, dark situation. You just don't know where people are at. One of the miracles that happened on this cruise, actually, and this isn't really anything to do with drugs, but tying into you don't know where people are at. I had a friend, his name was Josh, and he's about my age, one of the sweetest, kindest individuals you could have ever met. And in early January of this year, he wasn't somebody that I saw all that often, but when I did see him, I always just admired what a beautiful soul he was. I always admired just how kind and genuine and sweet he was. And I had saw on Facebook that he had, a relationship had ended and my relationship had just ended, and we had chatted a little bit on Facebook, and we talked about how, neither of us are ready to, really date or anything like that, but I thought, we had talked about, like, oh, let's meet up, let's meet up for lunch or something sometime. It was right at the beginning of this, like I said, it was January, so right at the beginning of this own massive kind of spiritual awakening in my own life. And not much longer after that, I was on Facebook and I kept on seeing all these posts about Josh. And he had passed away. He died. He must have been in such a state, a hopeless state, that he thought there was just no way out. And he passed away. And on this cruise, and I remember then thinking, I was just, again, he wasn't someone that I was super close to. I just remember just admiring what a beautiful soul he was. And whenever we did have an interaction, like our conversation online, I would always just, think, oh, what just a beautiful, nice guy, And no clue at all, because he didn't, in our conversations, really come off as like anybody that was in danger of going down that dark road. I didn't know any of the situation or whatnot. But anyways, the first night of this cruise, I decided I was gonna just go up and sit in the hot tub for a little bit, and I was sitting alone in the hot tub, just sipping on a little glass of champagne, looking up at the stars, and just enjoying, this beautiful evening. And in walks this happy-go-lucky gaggle of gays, and they come up to the hot tub, and they're like, I said, oh, come on in, the water's warm, and they came in the hot tub, and come to find out that group was his closest friends. And one of those friends is the one that actually found him. And I thought, wow, like I just was blown away that, the universe had put those guys in my path. And we were able to talk. I was able to tell them about in my friend group, in 2019, my best friend Bobby passed away unexpectedly, and it was what our friend group went through, dealing with that, and giving information to everybody, and all of that, and how exhausting that was. And we talked about that, and I said, I so empathize, I so know what you guys are going through. And I remember, just kind of looking up at the sky, and I was like, thank you, Josh. Thank you for introducing me to your friends. They're so lovely. They're just all beautiful, lovely guys. So sweet, and so nice, and kind. But the point of making it, there were so many beautiful things that happened on that cruise. So many people that the universe put in my path, connections that were made, beautiful conversations about, because I was like, the sound healing thing is what I will do for the rest of my life. And so when people ask me what I am now or what I do, I don't say it's federal government. I say I'm a sound healer. And Bodhi song is what I do now. And here's my little YouTube. You never know. You never know what somebody is going through. Always treat people with kindness. And if you ever hear a little voice inside of you when you come across somebody, and you feel like you need to go talk to them, or you feel like you need to go check in on them, do it. You might save a life. You never know. You never know how one small act of kindness can completely change and alter the course of somebody's life. You never know. That's what we're gonna do over here at Bodhi Song Inc. Which I think I said this before, but that's actually the legal name of my little business. We will always treat people with loving kindness. Always. My vision for Bodhi Song is that it is a safe harbor for anyone struggling, for anyone recovering from trauma. It's gonna be a place where people can just go just to receive love. Not be told how to think or be or act. If it doesn't work for you, if the sound healing thing isn't your thing, if the meditation thing isn't your thing, then okay. Be on your way. If it does help, then wonderful. But I, for the rest of my life, will try my damnedest to love as many people as I can, right where they are at. And I hope that that inspires folks to do the same. What I want, and what I hope all of you do today after watching this, is go out and do just one small act of kindness. And see how that changes your own mindset. See how it feels so good to love people. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something as small as just telling the cashier at the checkout counter that she looks really nice today. Or looking at someone that, on the street and smiling and saying hello. Acknowledging somebody. Oh Lord, I ended up being a ball of mess this time around. Anyways, I think we're at a good spot for this one. I dedicate this one to Charles and to Josh. Be love. Be love. I love you all.